In the depths of the archives of the Mexican Inquisition lies a document that historians have chosen to keep silent for more than 3 centuries. A report, sealed with black wax, recounts the events that took place at the Convent of Santa Clara of Assisi in Michoacán on the night of October 13, 1678. That night, an entire family vanished, along with 3 nuns, leaving behind nothing but pools of blood that never fully dried, and whispers that, according to the townsfolk, can still be heard when the wind moves through the ruins. What terrible secret were the Torres family protecting? A secret for which they were willing to pay the highest price. The truth you are about to uncover will challenge everything you thought you knew about faith and human desperation. Michoacán, in the year of our Lord 1678, was a land where pre-Hispanic traditions still pulsed beneath the surface of Catholic fervor. The town of Uruapán, nestled among pine-covered mountains and fertile valleys, was home to a little over 2,000 souls who lived under the protective shadow of the Convent of Santa Clara of Assisi. But this was no ordinary convent. It had been built over the ruins of an ancient Uruapán temple. Its thick pink stone walls seemed to guard the secrets of both civilizations. The convent was founded in 1634 by the Torres family, a dynasty of Spanish merchants who had thrived in the silver trade between Michoacán and Mexico City. Don Sebastián Torres and his wife, Dona Esperanza de Mendoza, donated their land and fortune for its construction, becoming the perpetual patrons of the institution. Their son, Don Mateo Torres, continued the tradition, living in a grand house attached to the convent with his wife, Isabel, and their twin daughters, Catalina and Esperanza. The Torres family did not merely fund the convent, they practically ran it. Don Mateo oversaw the finances. Isabel coordinated charitable works. Their 17-year-old daughters helped teach the orphan girls taken in by the convent. The 23 nuns who lived there considered the Torres family an extension of their own spiritual household. Among these religious women, 3 figures stood out. Sister Magdalena, 50 years old, who had arrived from Spain with a reputation as a visionary. Sister Beatriz, just 25, known for her extraordinary beauty and near-fanatical devotion. Sister Clemencia, an elderly nun of 70, the very first to join the convent, who knew every corner and secret of the place. The convent was renowned across the region for its miracles. People claimed the sisters' prayers could heal the sick and protect crops from plagues. Pilgrims traveled from afar seeking blessings, and the influence of Santa Clara spread well beyond Uruapán. On October 13, 1678, the day began like any other. The bells rang for Vespers at 5 p.m., and the angelic voices of the nuns rose in chants that could be heard even in the town's central square. That evening, Dona Isabel Torres prepared a special dinner for the sisters, as she did every Sunday. The aroma of mole poblano mingled with the ever-burning incense in the chapel. But during dinner, something happened, something that the cook, Dona Carmen Villalpando, would later recall as the first omen of the horror to come. While serving the food, she noticed that Catalina and Esperanza, the twin daughters, did not take a single bite and remained utterly silent throughout the evening. When asked if they felt ill, the girls exchanged a strange look and replied in unison, their voices distant and hollow. "Tonight, our grandfather's promise will be fulfilled." Dona Carmen shivered. The twins had never spoken in such eerie synchrony before, and their eyes glowed with a light that did not seem entirely human. Even more unsettling was the behavior of the 3 nuns, who would later vanish. Sister Beatriz, normally lively and talkative, spoke not a word and spent the entire meal scratching symbols into the wooden table with her nails. Sister Magdalena muttered prayers in a language the cook did not recognize. And Sister Clemencia, frail and 70 years old, displayed unnatural strength when she lifted a heavy clay pot that usually required 2 people to move. When night fell, stranger things began to unfold. Don Rodrigo Vasquez, the sacristan of the convent, who lived across the street, was the first to notice something unusual. The bells did not ring at the usual hour of compline, 9 p.m. The silence that followed was not the familiar silence of nighttime prayer, but something heavier, more unsettling. It was as if the very air had stopped moving. Around 11 p.m., Don Rodrigo saw strange lights flickering through the convent windows. They were not the soft glow of candles, but a reddish glare that seemed to dance from cell to cell. Alarmed, he approached the convent, only to find the main door locked from the inside, something that had never happened before. Then he heard the chants. They were not the Latin hymns he knew by heart, but something entirely different, something that chilled him to the bone. The voices rose and fell in patterns that belonged to no Christian melody. Among them, he thought he could distinguish the voices of Don Mateo and his family, blending with those of the nuns in a harmony that was both beautiful and profoundly disturbing. At midnight, everything stopped abruptly. The red glow vanished. The chants ceased. Darkness and absolute silence swallowed the convent. Trembling but faithful to his duty, Don Rodrigo circled the building, searching for signs of life. At the rear door leading to the orchard, he found it wide open. From within, a metallic stench drifted out, the unmistakable smell of blood. By dawn on October 14th, Don Rodrigo had gathered the courage to enter, accompanied by Father Antonio Mejia, the parish priest of Uruapán. What they discovered defied all logic. The convent was completely empty. All 29 of its inhabitants had vanished as though they had never existed. Only in the cells of Sisters Magdalena, Beatriz, and Clemencia did they find pools of blood, still wet, though an entire night had passed. Stranger still, the blood formed patterns on the stone floor, designs that bent upon themselves, twisting into impossible geometry and symbols that neither man could recognize. In the Torres family's chambers, the scene was even more disturbing. The furniture stood neatly in place. Clothes hung spotless in the wardrobes. Everything looked as though the family might return at any moment. But on the marriage bed lay a single object, one that would haunt Don Rodrigo with nightmares for the rest of his life. A silver reliquary, entirely black, as though it had been burned from the inside. Upon its surface was an inscription written in a tongue that was neither Latin, nor Spanish, nor Purépecha. The official investigation was led by Don Fernando de Ascret, Commissioner of the Inquisition. His conclusion was swift. The Torres family and the 3 missing nuns had fled in the night for unknown reasons. Perhaps financial troubles, perhaps personal scandals. This official version satisfied the colonial authorities, but it did nothing to quiet the rumors that began to spread among the people. Locals whispered of strange lights that still appeared in the convent windows, though it now stood abandoned. They spoke of chants echoing through the halls on moonless nights, and of a presence that wandered the empty corridors. Some swore they had seen the figure of Dona Isabel walking through the orchard at dawn. Others claimed they had heard the laughter of the Torres twins resonating inside the chapel. For the next 50 years, the convent remained officially closed, though never truly abandoned. The church periodically sent priests to perform blessings and exorcisms. Each of them returned with unsettling stories, whispers in unknown tongues, and the constant feeling of being watched by invisible eyes. In 1728, exactly 50 years after the disappearance, Father Geronimo de la Serra, a Jesuit priest renowned for his study of inexplicable phenomena, arrived in Uruapán. He had been sent by the Archbishop of Mexico to investigate the persistent rumors surrounding the convent. Father Geronimo was a man of both science and faith, educated in the finest universities of Europe. He approached the mystery with a rare balance, intellectual skepticism, yet spiritual openness. During his first weeks in Uruapán, he gathered testimonies from every surviving witness. Don Rodrigo, now an old man of 83, recounted his story with clarity, though terror still glimmered in his eyes as he recalled at night. But it was another revelation, unexpected and chilling, that changed the course of the investigation. Dona Carmen Villalpando, the former cook, now an elderly woman, confessed something she had never revealed to the authorities. In the days leading up to October 13th, she had noticed Don Mateo Torres spending long hours in the convent library, studying books she had never seen before, ancient volumes, some bound in black leather that seemed to swallow the candlelight, others with pages that crackled like dried leaves when turned. Even more disturbing, Carmen had seen the 3 missing nuns secretly meeting with the Torres family in the convent crypt, a place officially reserved only for the remains of the founders. These gatherings always took place after midnight, while the rest of the sisters slept. And always, before these meetings, the participants observed a 3-day fast, which they justified as a special penance. Armed with this new testimony, Father Geronimo resolved to explore the crypt himself, an area never thoroughly examined during the original inquiry. What he found there would change him forever. The convent's crypt turned out to be far more extensive than the official blueprint suggested. Behind the altar, where the remains of Don Sebastian Torres and his wife rested, Geronimo discovered a hidden door. It led to a secret chamber carved directly into the living rock of the mountain. On the chamber's walls, etched with what seemed to be a metal tool, were hundreds of symbols. The priest recognized them immediately. They were neither Christian nor pre-Hispanic, but something older, markings he had seen only in forbidden texts locked away in the Inquisition's most secret archives. At the very center of the chamber stood a black stone altar, unlike any rock found in the region. Upon it, carved with supernatural precision, were 13 concentric circles, each inscribed with writing that seemed to shift shape when not looked at directly. But what truly stole the priest's breath was what he found in the central circle. Remains of black candles, still exuding a sickly sweet odor, and traces of blood. Human blood. Blood that, even after 50 years, remained bright red, as though it had been spilled only hours before. Father Geronimo was a courageous man. Yet, what he discovered next tested both his faith and his sanity. In a niche carved into the eastern wall of the chamber, wrapped in a black silk cloth, lay a book. It was no ordinary book. It was a grimoire. Its pages were not made of paper nor parchment, but of some material that felt warm to the touch, as though alive, pulsing faintly beneath his fingers. The first pages were written in Latin, but a corrupted Latin, tangled with words from unknown tongues. From what Geronimo could decipher, the text described a ritual known as the Pact of 13 Souls. The ritual allowed a family to offer up their lives to protect a sacred place from all misfortune for 130 years. The cost was the physical disappearance of those who participated. In return, their souls would be eternally bound to the site, becoming its everlasting guardians. But there was one dreadful condition. The ritual could only be completed with the voluntary participation of at least 3 consecrated virgins, nuns, who would give their lives out of love for God and for the protection of the sacred ground. And it had to be performed during the October lunar conjunction, when the new moon coincided with the feast of Saint Teresa of Avila. With horror, Father Geronimo realized that the night of October 13, 1678, had been precisely such a conjunction. But what froze his blood completely was the final page of the grimoire. There, in a handwriting he immediately recognized as Don Mateo Torres's, was a chilling inscription. The pact has been sealed. Our souls will guard this place until the appointed time. May God forgive what we have done in love. Trembling, Father Geronimo closed the book. At that very moment, something extraordinary happened. The secret chamber filled with a faint golden light, and the air grew heavy with the fragrance of roses and incense. For an instant, he saw translucent figures moving through the shadows. a family of 5, and 3 women dressed in religious habits. Their faces were serene, yet infinitely sorrowful. Then, a familiar voice whispered in his ear. It was Don Mateo Torres. "Father, the convent is protected. Our sacrifice was not in vain. But now, you must decide what to do with what you have discovered." Shaken to the core, the Jesuit left the crypt with a grimoire under his arm. But it was not until 3 days later, after carefully examining the parish archives of Uruapán, that he began to grasp the full magnitude of what had transpired at the Convent of Santa Clara. The truth was even more complex and more terrible than he had imagined. In the months leading up to October 1678, the region had been ravaged by calamities that threatened to destroy the community entirely. A plague of locusts had ruined the crops. A typhoid epidemic had killed more than 300 people. Bands of marauders prowled the roads, turning travel into a death sentence. And worse still, rumors spread that a group of corrupt inquisitors was planning to accuse the nuns of heresy in order to seize the lands and wealth of the Torres family. But Geronimo uncovered something else, something darker. Among the personal archives of Uruapán's former parish priest, he found a letter dated October 10, 1678, just 3 days before the disappearance. In it, Father Miguel Santa Cruz described a disturbing confession he had received from Don Mateo Torres himself. For weeks, Mateo had been plagued by the same recurring dream. He saw his deceased father, Don Sebastián, warning him that the time of payment had come, that he must honor the pact with the guardians of the sacred place to save those he loved. Even more unsettling, Mateo confessed that his twin daughters had begun speaking in their sleep, uttering words in an unknown language. At the same time, the 3 nuns reported visions, identical visions, in which a voice commanded them to prepare for the ultimate sacrifice, a sacrifice that would bring eternal peace. Father Santa Cruz, horrified, had interpreted these events as signs of demonic influence. He had scheduled an exorcism for October 14, 1 day too late. By then, Don Mateo, desperate to protect both the convent and his community, had begun searching for answers in places no devout man should have dared to explore. In the convent's library, he discovered a hidden collection of books once belonging to the land's previous owner, Don Alvaro de Carvajal, a Spaniard executed by the Inquisition in 1633 for witchcraft and diabolical pacts. Among those forbidden volumes, Mateo found references to the ritual of the 13 souls, a rite said to have been used by the last Purepeca priests to shield their temples from Spanish conquest. The ritual promised eternal protection for a sacred place, but at a terrible price: the voluntary sacrifice of an entire family, along with at least 3 consecrated virgins. What Father Geronimo discovered in Don Mateo's hidden writings, tucked away behind a false wall in the convent library, was devastating. The patriarch had not acted alone. Sister Magdalena, Sister Beatriz, and Sister Clemencia had been his willing accomplices in the ritual. The 3 nuns, tormented by the plagues and disasters afflicting their community, convinced that God had abandoned them, came to believe that only an extreme sacrifice could save the convent and the town. For months, the 6 of them had prepared themselves spiritually. They fasted, prayed, and purified their souls, firmly convinced that their sacrifice would be accepted by the Almighty as the ultimate act of love for their people. On the night of October 13th, they gathered in the secret chamber. They lit the black candles, prepared exactly as the grimoire instructed. Then they began the ritual chant, the very same haunting melody that Don Rodrigo had heard from his house across the street. The ritual demanded that each participant voluntarily spill their blood onto the black stone altar while reciting the words of the pact. According to the grimoire, at the moment the last drop of blood touched the stone, their souls would be freed from their physical bodies, transformed into the eternal guardians of the sacred place. Their bodies would vanish, consumed by the power of the ritual, but their spirits would remain forever bound to the convent. The evidence Geronimo gathered was overwhelming. In the 50 years since the disappearance, the Convent of Santa Clara had remained inexplicably intact, even through earthquakes that destroyed buildings throughout the region. During the Great Cholera epidemic of 1695, Uruapán had been the only city in Michoacán spared from a single death. Bandits avoided the area instinctively, and the few who dared approach fled in terror, babbling of voices whispering threats in the darkness. The Jesuit realized that the ritual had worked exactly as the cursed grimoire had promised. The souls of the Torres family and the 3 nuns had indeed become the supernatural protectors of the convent and of the entire community of Uruapán. The price was terrible, but the results were undeniable. Faced with this impossible truth, Father Geronimo made a choice that would alter the course of history. Instead of reporting his findings to the Inquisition, he resolved to seal the truth forever. He locked the grimoire inside a lead chest, blessed it with holy water, and buried it in a secret place, its location taken with him to the grave. In his official report, he attributed the strange phenomena of the convent to manifestations of divine grace, claiming that such miracles protected only the most sacred places. But privately, he left behind a complete testimony of his discoveries, sealed with the instruction that it should only be opened after his death. That document, found among his personal belongings in 1784, is what allowed the true story of the Torres family to reach us today. The convent was finally reopened in 1730, just 2 years after Father Geronimo's secret investigation. From then on, it functioned normally for nearly 2 centuries, until the turmoil of the Mexican Revolution. During all those years, the nuns who lived there reported a constant feeling of protection and peace, as if invisible, loving hands watched over them day and night. Not a single nun died of illness within the convent for more than 200 years, a record that defies all medical explanation. But the story did not end there. In 1924, when revolutionary laws forced the convent's permanent closure, the last sisters who lived there reported something extraordinary. On their final night inside, they saw them, a family of 5, and 3 nuns, walking serenely through the hallways, as though bidding farewell after nearly 2.5 centuries of faithful service. The building of Santa Clara's convent still stands to this day, transformed into a museum. Visitors often recount strange experiences. The sudden fragrance of roses in empty rooms, the faint ringing of bells that do not exist, and the comforting sensation of being lovingly watched by unseen presences. The museum guides have learned never to mention the story of the Torres family, but those who know the truth understand. The sacrificed souls still keep their eternal pact. In the municipal archives of Uruapán, the black reliquary found in the Torres chamber remains preserved. No one has ever been able to open it. Those who have touched it describe a warmth that seems to emanate from within, as though something alive rests inside. Experts who have examined the object confirm that the metal was subjected to temperatures impossible to achieve with 17th century technology. Yet they refuse to speculate further on how such a thing could have occurred. This macabre tale shows us that the love of family and community can drive us to unimaginable limits, and that sometimes the most terrible acts are born of the purest intentions. The Torres family and the 3 nuns paid the highest price possible to protect what they loved, but their sacrifice transcended death itself, transforming them into eternal guardians of the place they considered sacred. So now, the question remains, do you believe love can justify any sacrifice? Or are there limits that must never be crossed, no matter how noble the intention may seem? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story gave you chills, and you want more tales of terror and mystery like this one, don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and share this video with someone who loves the unexplained. We'll see you in the next story.